There is a kind of wisdom that the most successful, most grounded, most genuinely powerful people in the world share. A wisdom that is rarely taught in schools or celebrated in culture or discussed openly in the conversations most people have about success and achievement and building a meaningful life. It is the wisdom of silence. Not the silence of having nothing to say, not the silence of fear or insecurity or the inability to express yourself, but the deliberate, strategic, deeply intentional silence of someone who understands that not everything that is yours needs to be shared, that not every chapter of your story needs an audience, that the most powerful things in your life are often the things you protect most carefully from the noise and the opinions and the energy of the outside world. There are things in your life right now that you are sharing too freely, things you are putting on display that would serve you far better if they were kept close, things that lose their power, their momentum, their sacred energy the moment they are exposed to people who have no stake in your success and no genuine investment in your growth. And today, I am going to talk to you about 6 of them, 6 categories of your life that you must keep private, not because secrecy is virtuous in itself, but because protection is, because the things that matter most to you deserve to be shielded from the careless handling of people who do not understand their value. The first thing you must keep private are your goals and your dreams while they are still forming. There is a moment in the life of every goal where it is fragile, where it exists more as energy and possibility and excitement than as a concrete plan with traction and momentum, where it is alive inside you but not yet rooted enough to withstand the weight of other people's doubt and skepticism, and well-meaning but ultimately destructive opinions. That moment is the most dangerous time to share, because what happens when you share a dream in its fragile state is almost never what you hope will happen. You hope for encouragement, for excitement that matches yours, for someone to see the vision the way you see it, and reflect back to you the certainty that it is possible and worth pursuing. What you usually get instead is doubt, questions that sound like concern but function like cold water on a fire, comparisons to people who tried something similar and failed, unsolicited advice from people who have never done what you are trying to do about why it probably will not work for you either. And sometimes the damage is even more subtle. Sometimes the person you share with is genuinely supportive. They say all the right things, they tell you it sounds amazing, they express enthusiasm and encouragement, and you feel satisfied. You feel like the dream has been acknowledged, like it has been validated. And that feeling of having shared it, of having received the approval you were unconsciously seeking, subtly reduces the urgency to actually pursue it. The psychological need that was driving the goal gets partially satisfied by the sharing of it, and the fire that needed to stay hot and private and focused on action gets diluted into conversation. Research actually supports this. Studies on goal sharing have found that telling people about your goals before you achieve them often reduces the likelihood of achieving them, because the social recognition of stating the goal provides a taste of the reward before the work is done, and the brain, having tasted the reward, reduces its drive to do the work that would actually earn it. Keep your goals private while they are forming. Protect the fire. Let the dream build into something with roots and momentum and actual progress before you expose it to the world. Show people what you built, not what you are planning to build. The second thing you must keep private is your personal struggles and your pain. This is perhaps the most misunderstood piece of advice in a culture that has made vulnerability into a performance, where sharing your trauma has become a social currency, where the public processing of private pain has become so normalized that people mistake oversharing for authenticity and confuse exposure with healing. Real vulnerability is sacred. Real vulnerability shared with the right people in the right context is one of the most healing and connecting experiences a human being can have. It is not vulnerability that is the problem. It is indiscriminate vulnerability, the kind that pours your most tender, most wounded, most unprocessed pain out to people who have not earned the right to hold it, who do not have the capacity or the genuine care or the maturity to handle it with the respect it deserves. Because what happens to your pain when you share it with the wrong people is not healing. It is exposure without protection. It is taking something that is already wounded and placing it in an environment where it can be judged, mishandled, used against you, or simply dismissed in a way that adds new layers of hurt to existing ones. Your struggles are not content. Your pain is not a post. Your hardest chapters are not entertainment for people who will scroll past them in 3 seconds and move on without a second thought, while you remain in the reality of what you are going through. Be selective, deeply selective. Share your pain with people who have proven, through consistent action over time, that they can hold it with care. With a therapist, with a trusted friend whose loyalty and discretion you know without question, with a family member who has your genuine well-being as your priority. But protect your pain from the casual audience, not because you should be ashamed of your struggles, you should not, but because your pain deserves better than an audience. It deserves healing, and healing happens in safe spaces with trusted people, not in public performance. The fourth thing you must keep private is your financial situation, both ends of it. If you are struggling financially, sharing that information widely opens you to judgment, to people who will define your worth by your current circumstances, to the kind of pity that diminishes rather than elevates, and sometimes to people who will take advantage of vulnerability they were not meant to know about. But if you are doing well financially, sharing that information creates its own set of problems. It changes how people see you and relate to you. It attracts people whose interest in you is connected to what you have, rather than who you are. It generates expectations and requests, and a kind of resentment from people who measure their own worth against yours and find the comparison uncomfortable. Money is one of the most charged topics in human relationships. It carries with it centuries of complicated emotion around worth and value and status and fairness, and almost no good comes from sharing the specifics of your financial situation with people who do not need to know. Your financial journey is yours. The decisions you are making, the habits you are building, the wealth you are creating, or the debt you are climbing out of, all of it deserves to be protected from the unsolicited opinions and the complicated reactions of people who have no role in your financial life. Share your financial reality with your financial partner if you have one, with a trusted financial advisor, with the people whose lives are directly and legitimately intertwined. Everyone else does not need to know, and you do not need their opinions about it. Nothing invites outside interference more reliably than making your romantic relationship a public matter. Every relationship has its private rhythms, its intimate conflicts, its tender, vulnerable places that can only thrive in the protection of privacy. And when you bring the outside world into those spaces, you do not just expose the relationship, you change it. Other people's opinions about your partner, your relationship, your choices within it are almost always filtered through their own experiences, their own biases, their own unresolved wounds and projections. The friend who tells you your partner does not deserve you may be speaking from a place of genuine concern, or may be speaking from their own fear of intimacy, or their own unprocessed jealousy, or their own complicated feelings about relationships. You often cannot tell which, and their advice, well-intentioned or not, shapes how you see something that you should be seeing through your own clear eyes. When your relationship goes through a difficult patch, and you share those difficulties with people outside it, you are inviting them to form opinions about your partner and your relationship that will not automatically disappear when the difficulty passes and things are good again. People remember what you told them in your worst moments, and their perception of your relationship, once colored by those moments, does not fully reset. Protect your relationship from the noise of outside opinion. Work through your difficulties privately or with a professional whose role is specifically to help. Celebrate your love privately or with people who know and genuinely love both of you. And understand that the most beautiful, most lasting relationships are almost always ones that were built and maintained in the privacy of two people who chose each other and protected that choice from the interference of the world. The fifth thing you must keep private is your next move. Not permanently, not as a strategy of deception or secrecy, but in the critical period between when you decide to do something and when you actually do it. In that window, your plans are at their most vulnerable, not just to outside doubt and discouragement, but to something more insidious: competition, copying. The people who would see what you are building and build something similar, who would hear your idea and implement it faster, who would know your direction and position themselves to intercept it. The world is not filled with people who want to see you fail, but it is also not filled uniformly with people who want to see you succeed. And some of the people who know your plans will consciously or unconsciously use that knowledge in ways that are not in your interest. Beyond the competitive concern, there is a simpler truth. Talking about what you are going to do is not the same as doing it. And the more you talk about your next move, the more energy goes into the talking and the less remains for the doing. The person who tells everyone about the business they are going to start has distributed the excitement and the energy of that intention across dozens of conversations. The person who quietly starts the business and tells people when it is ready has kept all of that energy focused on the work. Let your results make the announcement. Move in silence, build in quiet, and when what you have built is real and solid and already in motion, that is when you share. Not the plan, the reality. The sixth thing you must keep private is your personal transformation. When you are changing, when you are doing the work of becoming different, of building new habits and breaking old ones, of shifting your mindset and your behaviors and the fundamental patterns of how you move through the world, that process needs protection. Because personal transformation is fragile in exactly the same way that new goals are fragile. It is most vulnerable in its early stages when it has not yet accumulated enough evidence and momentum to withstand the skepticism of people who knew the old you and are not sure yet whether to believe in the new one. And people who knew the old you will often, consciously or unconsciously, try to pull you back to it, not out of malice, but because your change unsettles something in them, because the old version of you was familiar and comfortable, and its transformation implies something about them, about the gap between what they are doing and what you are choosing to do, that they are not ready to sit with. Every time you announce your transformation before it is solid, you invite that resistance. You give people the opportunity to comment on and question and subtly undermine something that is still in the process of becoming real. Transform quietly. Build the new habits without announcing them. Make the changes without seeking validation for them. Let the evidence of your transformation speak in due time through the results and the choices and the person you are visibly, undeniably becoming. And when the transformation is complete, when it is woven into who you are rather than something you are trying to be, it will need no announcement. People will see it, and no amount of skepticism will be able to argue with the reality of what you have built. Now, let me bring this together with one final truth: the impulse to share everything, to keep nothing private, to make every chapter of your life visible and every aspect of your journey public. That impulse is not authenticity. In the culture we live in, it often masquerades as authenticity, but real authenticity is living in alignment with your actual values, regardless of whether anyone is watching. It is making choices that reflect who you genuinely are, rather than choices designed to generate a particular response from an audience. It is being the same person in private that you are in public. And a person who is genuinely, deeply, authentically living their own life understands intuitively that some things are more powerful protected than exposed, that some fires burn hotter when they are not dispersed, that some journeys are better made in silence than in noise. Protect your goals, protect your pain, protect your finances, protect your love, protect your next move, protect your transformation. Not because you are ashamed of any of it, but because you understand that the most important things in your life deserve the most careful protection. Silence is not emptiness, it is power. Learn to use it.